All right. First round mock draft 2.0 is here. Let's break down all of the changes that I made to this version. Hope y'all are having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shumake, and this is the Shumake Take. Hope y'all are doing well. Got a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into things today, or not today, last night. If you guys know, I'm a gamer. I got back into American Truck Simulator, which is a literal game where you truck across the United States, just delivering stuff and whatnot. You're a trucker. And I recently got back into, or I just said this last night, I got back into the game with a friend of mine. I bought some new DLC for the game, which, by the way, as of me recording this video, it is the game and all the DLC and whatnot's on sale. So if you want to go get into the game, now is a good time to do so. This is not a sponsor, but go ahead and check out American Truck Simulator. It's a fun game if you want to just chill out, right? If you like tycoon games, this is the game for you. And also, today, this Sunday, I got a little bit of chores done. I blew off the roof of my grandma's house and did a couple other things around there as well. So I've been doing pretty busy. Then I've spent all afternoon making this mock draft, and now we are here to record it. Now, one more thing before we officially jump into it. If you're new around here on the channel and you like what you're listening to, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe button, as it helps the channel out tremendously and helps me continue to grow and spread my football passion to more and more people. We hit 50 subscribers. We're currently at 51. We want to hit 100 before the 2025 season starts, so make sure you guys are hitting those buttons and we can get business booming by the time the season starts. But going into this mock draft, let's talk about the changes that I made. So what is different? Well, at face value, 19 different selections were made. So 19 out of 32 picks are different compared to my first round mock draft 1.0. 18 to 32 are more specifically are where we really start to see some changes. But starting up at the top, there's a couple changes I made in the top 10. Right now, to me, the bottom 5 or the bottom 4 are completely wide open. From the Jets to the Bears, there's truly no way to guess where they're actually going to go. For me, like the Jets, they could go either Will Campbell or Montembeau. I'm pretty sure they're going to go offensive lineman, but that could change, right? Even Ashton Genty at 6 above them could, for the Raiders, that's seemingly going to be the pick, but there's some rumors that they could go defense. So that's a thing. The Panthers, I think they're going defense at number 8, but is that Jalen Walker or is that Mikael Williams? That could always change. And then number 10 and number 9 for the Bears and the Saints, respectively, there's a multitude of different ways they could go. So the bottom 5 are by no means set at all and very much wide open so far. But the top 5, though, is set for me. I think the top 5 is going to be Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, right? Oh my God, I just had a brain fart. Cameron Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham. I think that's going to be the top 5, and going forward in future mock drafts, that is going to be the guaranteed only constant in the mock drafts. So other things that were changed, the mid round from anywhere from 11 to 11 to 20, we saw some players jump. A couple jumped, a couple dropped. But mostly the changes in that area remain the same in terms of teams picking players based off of their biggest need, if that makes sense, that's a big influence in this 2.0 mock draft. But other than that, there really wasn't that much of a variation, where picks 18 to 32, like I mentioned, especially 20 to 32, there's a lot of movement down there and a lot of picks that I think might be unlikely. But compared to where they were at and what was available and the needs for each team, I thought there was fits there. So at least it's not unrealistic completely. So that's a kind of a little bit of a disclaimer, not really. And the last thing that I'm going to talk about is this late run on edge rushers. I did this last draft in 1.0 where from 27 to 32, there's 4 edge rushers that went. I have it going the exact same way again. The thing is, this is my bold take for the NFL draft, is that this edge rusher class, I'm not as high on compared to other people, the more analysis and research that I did. Not because I think the prospects aren't as good. No, not at all. I just think that economically, because there's more of them available, projected to go in the first round, I think that's going to deflate their stock a little bit because there's more availability. And also just the depth overall in the draft class, I think it's going to lower their value a little bit. But also, the prospects right now, in terms of their day one contribution, to me, aren't going to be that much different compared to their second round counterparts. overall, I think that's how the draft is looking at right now. Like picks, 20 to 50 are not that far apart compared to other drafts in years past, where, right now, the edge rushers that are going to go on day one and the edge rushers that are going to go on day two, their talent levels are about like right here. This is day one, day two is right here. Where maybe in 5 years, okay, yeah, the first round edge rushers could be like here, and the edge rushers on day two will probably be like right here, right? So there's definitely a lot higher of a ceiling, which is why these edge rushers that are projected to go in the first round are first round talents. But right now, their day one contribution's not going to be that much different compared to the edge rushers going in round two, at the top end of round two. So that's why I have a lot of these edge rushers going very, very late in the first round. But that's not to say I think this edge rusher class is not worse than what people are making it out to be. No, this is like an all-time great edge rusher class in my opinion. But I think it's because of all the talent that is available compared to what's actually high end at the top, if that makes sense. Like 2024's draft class last year, right? With Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels, right? It's not like that. So with that being said, now we can jump into the actual mock draft. Jumping here, we're going to start here with the top 11 on the screen right now. I may end up putting the whole thing on the screen like I did last time. We'll just see what it looks like. So for right now, we'll just kind of hone in on the top 11. Number 1 through 5 are still the same, as you can tell. Like I mentioned, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham. I don't envision these changing, and realistically, the only changes that I think will be made are 2, 3, and 4. But even if those changes, all five of these players are going to go in the top 5. There is no doubt in my mind that that's what it's going to be. So we'll probably just skip over those because they're still the same to me. Number 6, Ashton Jeanty. That is not going to be discussed anymore. That is still the same for me. But number 7th overall is where the draft in the mock really begins here, with the Jets selecting Armand Membo out of Missouri. Why I had Armand Membo going here is because I saw this fit for the Jets, because you think about Aaron Glenn, who just came from Detroit. Who was their right tackle in Detroit? Penei Sewell. I'm not saying that Armand Membo is a Penei Sewell level player, but he does fit that similar mold where he has got huge size, right? He's also a right tackle. I think he is a right tackle at the next level. Some people think he's a guard. I don't agree with that at all. I think he is a right tackle at the next level. And the Jets, they need left tackle and right tackle. So they could go either or with Membo or Will Campbell. But because I think Armand Membo is a more bona fide tackle, and there's a more legitimate argument for him to be a bona fide tackle compared to Will Campbell, I think him going to the Jets here at number 7 could fit, right? And because it's a position of need, I have no qualms about the Jets picking Membo. Number 8 overall, Jalen Walker still remains. I will say maybe in the next draft I'll have Mikael Williams going instead of Jalen Walker, because the Panthers could use a more bona fide edge rusher instead of Jalen Walker, who's more of a tweener. But that being said, the reason why I have Jalen Walker going 8th again is because I think he's a really good prospect, because he is a tweener, and the fact that he can do both at a decent level. I think because the Panthers also need a bunch, they need a star player on the front 7. I think that's a guy that can really do that. A chess piece that can move around. And seeing how well he played at both positions at Georgia, 5 years ago, a tweener like Jalen Walker probably wouldn't, it'd be harder for him to find a role in the NFL. Kind of like Isaiah Simmons, where he could do a little bit of everything, but because of that, he could never find a niche role in the NFL where he was really good at something, and it kind of tanked his career because of it. But now, where we see more and more players, playing multiple different positions, and versatility is at an all-time high and an all-time need for players coming into the NFL, a guy like Jalen Walker has the highest chance of succeeding now in today's NFL than ever, really. So getting a player like that that's versatile, can do a bunch of different things, and do them all pretty darn well, and for a team that really needs front 7 talent like the Carolina Panthers, I think that's why that pick right now remains the same. Number 9 is our second major change, Will Campbell to the New Orleans Saints. This one, to me, can fit 2 molds. Talise Fuaga is at left tackle. You could move Will Campbell to right tackle because he has the technique and the polish in that area to make that adjustment a lot easier. It's more akin to Joe Alt, who came out of Notre Dame last year, 5th overall pick for the Chargers. But also, Trevor Penning is there right now. He is the right tackle. I don't know if he's going to be there for the long term. It looks like he may not be. But with Talese Fuaga being at left tackle, this opens the door for a scenario where Will Campbell plays guard. Now, do I think if he is he a tackle or a guard? I'm not sure. I'm just kind of in a wait and see mode because his arm length really indicates that he should be a guard at the next level. At the same time, he's learned how to play in compensation for it. Like, he knows how to play to himself and play to his strengths and make it work. So if you believe he's a tackle, I think he can play tackle. But can he play guard? Most certainly he could play guard and play well there. So this is a scenario where maybe you kick him to right tackle if you go that move. Or if you think he's a guard, he would slide in right at guard, and with him and Talese Fuaga locking on the left side of the offensive line, that would be like top 10 left tackle, left guard duo in the NFL in a couple of years. So Taints, they need offensive line help. Will Campbell fits that mold. Number 10th overall. While it's not Ashton Jeanty for the people that want Ashton Jeanty to go to the Bears, unfortunately, I just cannot see that happening. But I still have them picking a running back, and that running back is Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. Once again, the Bears, they're picking at a spot where their biggest needs aren't worth the players at the needs that they have are not worthy of being picked in the top 10. So this is another spot where, you're picking a really good player in Omarion Hampton, a guy who runs with power, but also has the agility to make you miss and quickly bounce outside if needed. And looking at what Ben Johnson has done in Detroit, he has worked his offenses ran with two running backs, one with speed, one with power. You have DeAndre Swift, now you have Omarion Hampton, you mix those two guys in, and now you have a running game that can really help settle down Caleb Williams and make things better for him. The one thing I have concerns with Omarion Hampton is a similar thing with DeAndre Swift, where his vision sometimes kind of blurs out and he'll run into the back of his own lineman sometimes. DeAndre Swift had a lot of issues with that in 2024. And so when you think about that and Omarion Hampton having similar issues, that doesn't look great. But also at the same time, Omarion Hampton's got a lot of upside and enough here where, okay, you can draft him at 10 and he will give you a lot of contributions on day one. So Omarion Hampton has a lot of good reasons to go to the Bears. I think there's a lot of fit there as well. So there you go. Omarion Hampton to the Bears to round out the top 10. And then we have our first probably ginormous change, and that's Jahad Campbell. I had him going 19th overall to the Bucs in 1.0. He jumps all the way to 11th in here with the San Francisco 49ers, the linebacker / kind of edge rusher out of Alabama. I have this one here because Jahad Campbell, the more I've done research and tape on him, the more I see people like him and see him going higher in the draft than I had him going at 19. And Jahad Campbell fits a need for the 49ers. Drake Greenlaw left, and so Jahad Campbell can fit in and sit next to Fred Warner. And because he is a more of a linebacker than edge rusher compared to Jalen Walker, who kind of does both, regularly, Jahad Campbell, the one knock on him to me is his instincts, which aren't great. But going into a situation with San Francisco, with Fred Warner being the first guy, he doesn't have to focus, him not being an instinctual player, right, doesn't really, it's not a big glaring issue compared to had he gone to another team like Tampa, where he probably would have had to play a bigger role. Here, he can really focus on just getting after the quarterback and just making smart decisions, coming downhill in the run game, where Fred Warner, all the mental stuff, he can take care of that. And that way, how much is on his plate is not as much. And once again, it fills a major need for the 49ers. And with Robert Saleh at DC, I think he's going to get great coaching, and I think it's a great fit there for that reason as well. Number 12, I have the Cowboys selecting Tyler Booker out of Alabama, originally going to the Dolphins in 1.0. He moves up one spot here. The Cowboys are in an interesting spot, and I think they're one of the teams that are primed to trade back. We're one of the candidates to trade back. I don't think they trade back. Jerry Jones is not that type of guy. I don't think he is going to trade back and get more picks, even though that's probably the most beneficial scenario for the Cowboys. But Tyler Booker, he's a guard. I think he'll fit right in. And while he's a more left guard than right guard, I think he could slide into right guard right there next to Terrence Steele at right tackle. And I think that could be a good fit. They need help on the interior of the offensive line because Zach Martin retired. So drafting a talent like Tyler Booker, who also has great leadership qualities, who also Zach Martin was a leader in that locker room for Dallas, I think that could be a guy that could fit in very nicely in year one for Dallas. And then onward, it could be a guy that is an anchor on your line and in your locker room for a decade plus, if it works. So I like the fit. I like the person going into the culture in Dallas. This could make a lot of sense for them if they decide to ultimately not trade back, which I don't think they will. Next up, another drastic change. I have the Dolphins selecting safety Malachi Starks out of Georgia. This one is a very highly debated one because most people right now either have Miami going offensive tackle, which would be Kelvin Banks in this scenario, most scenarios, or it's Malachi Starks. I'm having Malachi Starks go here in this mock because he's a really, really talented football player, and it would be hard to, it would be hard to pass that guy up, especially because the Dolphins just lost Javon Holland. So not only would that, fill that gap immediately, but also the Dolphins do need help in the secondary. If it's not offensive line, their second biggest need is secondary, and a talent like Malachi Starks would probably make a better day one impact. Once again, another day one influence here with his pick compared to the offensive line where Teron Armstead is still there, and in my opinion, it is looking more like he is going to be on the team in 2025. So the immediate need for a tackle is not as prevalent compared to safety, which is an immediate hole that needs to be filled. Number 14, this one remains the same. Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, going to the Indianapolis Colts. Once again, he's a really talented tight end, and the Colts, they have wide receivers, they have a running back in Jonathan Taylor, they have the offensive line for the most part. Here, you get Tyler Warren at tight end, and it kind of rounds everything out. Now, you have everything but a quarterback, so now we will see with a great set of supporting cast of weapons for whether it's Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, we will see what these quarterbacks are really made of. And with the addition of Tyler Warren, now there's no excuse for either of these quarterbacks to not play well. And if they don't play well, okay, we got problems. But that's a different conversation for another day. I think Tyler Warren's a great fit for the Indianapolis Colts to round out all of their weapons on offense. Number 15, this one also stays the same. I have the Falcons selecting Mikael Williams, the edge rusher out of Georgia. Once again, I think Mikael Williams is a second best, bona fide edge rusher in this draft behind Abdul Carter. I love his motor. I love his tools. I love how he plays. And also, he's a really, really good run defender, which is why he is higher than every other edge rusher, in my opinion, outside of Abdul Carter. Because he brings a lot of that run game expertise, which adding to a Falcons defense that was very mixed in the run game department, while they did get better on the second half of the year, it was still an issue in the first half, and you definitely want to get a guy that can just at least level that out, and you get solid play from week 1 to week 18, right? And I think Mikael Williams can give you that, and with the tools that he has now, he can contribute as a pass rusher day one, but definitely has the upside to really take off later on in his career. So I like the fit, I like the need, it fits perfectly for what the Atlanta Falcons want to do and what they need. Next one, 16th overall, is another big change. Not a big change in terms of what player is going where, but in terms of position of need. I have the Cardinals drafting Gray Zabel, the guard out of North Dakota State. The thing is, I think the value of the defensive tackles to me has dropped just a little bit. I don't think it ended up dropping further than what I anticipated. So I will do a little bit of it might be a little bit of a spoiler that I have Derek Harmon going to the Bills, but we'll talk about that later on. He's the first defensive tackle off the board. Do I think that's what ultimately happens? No, but with doing this mock, that's kind of how it shaped out. But back to Gray Zabel with the Arizona Cardinals, I think this is a good need for them because they need a right guard. Royce Newman is kind of a spot filler. He's a low-end starter. They have Paris Johnson Jr. at left tackle. They have Jonah Williams at right tackle. Their left guard is okay. He's good enough. Their center's okay. So really the only true big hole I can see on their offensive line is right guard. And Gray Zabel, who has experience both at left and right guard, right? and also tackle as well. Well, I shouldn't say he's experienced at guard. He's not really. He played right tackle and left tackle primarily when he was at North Dakota State. But because of his measurables, he's going to be a guard at the next level, and sliding him into right guard I think would be perfectly fine. Kind of reminds me of what the Bucks did with Graham Barton last year, the guy out of Duke, where they moved him into the interior and he played pretty well. I see a similar scenario for Gray Zabel, and for the Cardinals, it doesn't hurt to build through the trenches and add a position of need there at guard and get a very good quality starter that's going to start right away for you. Next up, 17th overall, this pick also stays the same. Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M, going to the Bengals. Once again, he is the third best edge rusher prospect. To me, that's debatable. It kind of changes every day when I think about it. But Shamar Stewart, here's the thing. He's got all the measurables. He's got the size. He's got the athleticism. He's got versatility, which I really, really like. And given the uncertainty of Trey Hendrickson, they need a guy with upside. Some people thought that Mike Green could go here. And while I very much agree, it could honestly flip-flop. Like, I would not be surprised if they drafted Mike Green or if they even drafted a guy like James Pierce if he went that high. But right now, it seems to me it's between Shamar Stewart and Mike Green. It just depends on what you want. I mean, Shamar Stewart gives you more like measurables and gives you more versatility, but Mike Green gives you more of that bona fide, like true pass rusher mold, where Shamar Stewart's going to do a couple different things and also has a little bit of a higher upside because of his measurables. But that being said, like Shamar Stewart, his production was not great at all in his final year at Texas A&M, which is one of his it is his biggest knock. My brain is working so fast right now, it's not even funny. But the thing is, Shamar Stewart, he's got a lot of upside. I think you pair him with Al Golden, the new DC. I think you get good coaching there, and there's potential for him to develop, and they just need some juice. They really need some juice, which, maybe not the best argument for Shamar Stewart compared to Mike Green, but I think Shamar Stewart has higher upside right now, so maybe you get him, and if you keep Trey Hendrickson, he doesn't have to play an immediate role right away, and if Trey Hendrickson leaves, well, at least he's got the upside where you can at least hope that he develops into a good replacement for him. Next up, number 18. This is the first pick, to me, that's probably unlikely to happen, and that is Kelvin Banks, the tackle out of Texas, going to the Seattle Seahawks. Another situation where it could be like Will Campbell, where maybe not, Kelvin Banks maybe doesn't have like the technique per se. He's got really good technique. I'm not taking that away from him, but definitely he has some issues that could be fixed. But the Seahawks have Charles Cross at left tackle. Kelvin Banks is also a left tackle. So in this scenario, you would kick Kelvin Banks to right tackle. Can he make that transition? I don't know. But at the same time, because of his size, I think he could be a good fit at right tackle compared to left tackle. But he does have, he has uncommon athleticism compared to other tackles, in the NFL. And where left tackle, you need to be athletic. Kelvin Banks fits that mold. But in this scenario for the Seahawks, they need offensive linemen. And with Kelvin Banks being the best one available, I think you can draft a guy like Kelvin Banks, kick him out to right tackle, and see if he makes a transition where I think he could be better than left tackle potentially because of his athletic inconsistencies. He's got the athleticism. It's not very polished. So that could be a good fit there. But this one, I will say, very unlikely to happen. Number 19th overall is another big change. Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan, going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This one, it's either going to be linebacker or corner for the Bucs. I don't think it's anything different. They could draft edge rusher, but I think with what they have there right now, that's not as an immediate of a need, where Will Johnson is a corner that has exceptional ball skills, exceptional measurables. The only thing I'm worried about is his long speed, and that's just because we haven't seen him play all that much because of his injuries, which is his second big concern. But the Bucs, between him, Will Johnson, and Jahdae Barron, I think the Bucs would ultimately settle for Will Johnson because of his potential, right? And he is going to be a number one corner, line up on the outside and lock down number one receivers, compared to Jahdae Barron, who's more of a versatile guy and doesn't have as high of a ceiling, but I think his floor is equally as high. I just think that the Bucks need they need a true outside number one corner, and Will Johnson can give them that compared to Jahdae Barron. But don't get it twisted. Will Johnson would fill a huge need for Tampa, and also could give them all pro level play if he reaches his ceiling. Number 20 overall, Denver Broncos is another pick that could be unlikely, and that's Tataroa McMillan out of Arizona. Tataroa McMillan is a guy that recently has fallen down draft boards quite a lot, more than I thought. Of course, that was because he made comments about him not watching film, and that's like, okay, that's a problem. And now you look at some of his weaknesses on tape where he's not an elite separator, which, sure, like he's got the size to be able to compensate for it. But at the same time, Tataroa McMillan, if you have I won't say it's a glaring weakness, but if you have noticeable like weaknesses on tape, and then you mention that you don't watch film, those two things mixed together are not good signs whatsoever, which is what's probably contributed to his draft stock falling. But I think Tataroa McMillan going to the Broncos is unlikely because they have Courtland Sutton. I don't know what they would do with two X receivers, but there is an argument to be made because Courtland Sutton's going into the last year of his contract, so he could be a free agent after the year. So maybe you draft Tataroa McMillan, you have those two guys, Sutton and McMillan, for a year, and then maybe you can let Courtland walk, and then T-Mac becomes your number one wide receiver, and then you figure it out later. But because they need a wide receiver more than I think they do need running back, probably more than wide receiver, I guess. But I don't think drafting a running back in the first round right here is necessary because of how deep this draft class is. You can get a good running back on day 2 and be perfectly fine. So draft a more premium talent with a wide receiver, and Tataroa McMillan still being technically the best one available. Here you go. Pick Tataroa. Number 21, I still have Jackson Dart going to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21st. The thing is, I think this is going to be the pick, even if Aaron Rodgers ultimately signs with Pittsburgh, which is what I think is going to happen. I think that's the pick they're going to go. The thing is, by the time the Pittsburgh Steelers are picking again in the second round, I think a lot of those top quarterback prospects that are going to go in this second are going to be gone. So now it's like now or never for picking quarterback in this draft. And for the Steelers, for the NFL in general, when you draft players, sometimes you want to draft ahead where, the Steelers, if you sign Aaron Rodgers, which is going to happen more than likely, you're going to be a playoff team. So you're not going to be in position to draft a quarterback at the top of the draft where you're going to need one next year because Aaron Rodgers is probably going to retire. So you're kind of in a position where you should draft a quarterback. And while Jackson Dart is a massive reach, at least with that 5th-year option that you're given to because it's a first-round pick, okay, you can afford to sit him for a year and let Aaron Rodgers play it out. He can learn behind Aaron Rodgers, and then there you go. He can start year 2, and he's in a better situation compared to having to start as a rookie. So that pick still remains the same. I don't know how much. I don't think it'll change, but there is a possibility it can change. I might do that in my next mock. I'm not sure. But right now, Jackson Dart is a pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 22, another change. Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan, going to the Chargers. Same discussion that I had with Will Johnson in my mock draft 1.0, where Colston Loveland the Chargers is one of the best fits he could go to, obviously because of the Jim Harbaugh Michigan connection, but also the Chargers do need a tight end. They don't have a bona fide number 1 tight end, and Colston Loveland is a guy that can move around. He's not a traditional Y, right? He's not a great blocker, but he is a really good receiver. He can attack the middle of the field, which is important in Jim Harbaugh's scheme on offense and what they're trying to do. And given that the Chiefs have Travis Kelce, it would be fitting for their AFC West rival, the Chargers, to draft a tight end like Colston Loveland who fits a similar mold to Travis Kelce. So I like the fit. I like the connection with Michigan. This pick is more likely to happen than probably Will Johnson, if I'm being honest. So I like the fit. I like the need at tight end. It's a really, if the Chargers came away with Colston Loveland at 22, I think this pick would be an A for me. Number 23, his draft slide stops here. I had the Packers drafting the Texas corner, Jahdae Barron. This one is interesting. I don't think Jahdae Barron ultimately falls to 23. Kind of like Kelvin Banks, I don't think or not Kelvin Banks, what is it? Tetaroa McMillan, I don't think he falls to 20, just like Barron doesn't fall to 23. There's teams in the middle of the first round that could use Jahdae Barron. Number one, the 49ers especially could use him. That's why I had him going in 1.0. But teams like the Cowboys, the Dolphins, the Falcons, the Bengals, even, like the Bucks, I mean, they could go Jahdae Barron right here, right? Even the Steelers, I mean, they could use another corner to go outside of Joey Porter Jr. So if they don't draft a quarterback, maybe Jahdae Barron goes there. Not to mention, because of that, we could see some trades because the Rams also need a corner. So if Jahdae Barron is available at 22, maybe they make a trade up with the Chargers to make sure that teams like the Packers and the Vikings who need corner don't pick Jahdae Barron, who I think is going to be a day one starter and play well right away because he's very well polished. And if he falls to the Green Bay Packers, that's an A-plus pick to me. So in this mock draft, he falls to 23. I don't think he falls any farther past that. I think the lowest he'll go is 23 to the Packers, but that's a very wide range for him to go. But in this draft, that is where he ended up. So, wabam, Packers get a player there and a steal of the draft if that's what ultimately happens. Number 24, another player that stays the same. The Vikings select safety out of South Carolina, Nick Amanwari. This one, it just feels, to me, I said it in my 1.0, this feels like a match made in heaven. A talent that has insane measurables, all the athleticism. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, if Nick Amanwari goes to the right coach, which Brian Flores in Minnesota is one of the best situations for him, you are getting potentially a top 5 safety, top 10 almost at minimum if he reaches his ceiling. Jesus Christ, like Nick Amanwari is one of those players I absolutely love for what he brings to the table. And once again, with the Minnesota Vikings and their defense and their coaches, there's not a much better situation that Nick Amanwari can go to. So I love the fit. I love the scheme. I love the need. It fits perfectly with those two. And then number 25, this is another one that is unlikely, but because the Texans need this so freaking much, I have them selecting Josh Simmons, the tackle out of Ohio State. I don't like that you're drafting a left tackle so high, compared to where other people have him. And also, not to mention his injuries, right? His season-ending injury in 2024 was really rough. He only played 6 games. But for the Texans, unless you're going to trade down, you got to pick offensive line with a 25th pick. And if you don't, what are you doing? They have no offensive linemen. They have no good offensive linemen on their roster. And if they walked away from the first round without an offensive lineman, they better have a good haul for round 2 and round 3 where they can really get good talent on day 2. But if that's not what happens and they don't come away with the offensive lineman with their 25th pick, it would be a disaster for the Texans. So while it's a position of need and it could be a reach, the need is so bad you kind of have to reach, similar to what the Steelers are doing with Jackson Dart. Number 26, I have the Rams selecting Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas. In this scenario, they can't get the corner that they need, so they go with the next best need, which is wide receiver. Wide receiver, while it's not an immediate need right now for the Rams, this is another situation where you should be drafting ahead because Puka Nacua, he's going to be there for a little bit longer, so there's no really worries there, but he has an injury history. So you mix that with Devontae Adams, who's not going to be there for a long time. He's signed to a 2-year deal. It's probably going to be a 1-year deal only, but even if he makes it to 2 years, that's an only 2-year solution. So you draft a guy like Matthew Golden, while his high-end talent is not very high compared to maybe like a Tetaroa McMillan or a Emeka Egbuka, even Matthew Golden is one of the few players in this draft that is going to start right away and play well, in my opinion. Like, I can say that with almost like 100% certainty that he is going to come in and he is going to contribute and play well because he's another player who's really, really polished. He is versatile. I like his skill set. Like, there is no reason why, if he's available, why the Rams should not select Matthew Golden. Because of Puka Nacua's injury history and Devontae Adams not being there for a long time, and then there's, depth. There's only a few depth players after that. Matthew Golden can step in, play more of a slot receiver role in year 1, and then after Devontae Adams goes, maybe in year 2, he can take more snaps there and really develop into a solid receiver for the Rams for a long time. And then now we get into that run on edge rushers that I was talking about. 27th overall, I have the Ravens selecting Mike Green, the edge rusher out of Marshall. This one, to me, is he's the best edge rusher available, because the thing is, Mike Green is going to, while he may not give you production right away, he was a very productive pass rusher in college and definitely fits that mold of bona fide pure pass rusher, right? His run defense needs a lot of work, but that's why I think it's such a great fit to go to the Ravens, because they have Cam Van Noy, they have Odafe Owe, they have players that can start above Mike Green, where he can just slide into the rotation and be a third down pass rusher and do what he does best and not have too much on his plate, which is the same reasoning why I had Nick Scoriton going to the Ravens in 1.0. But I think right now Mike Green is a better prospect, which is why Scoriton dropped and Mike Green is up. So that's a fit there. Mike Green to the Ravens would be a great pick for them. Number 28, this pick remains the same. James Pierce Jr. going to the Lions. Once again, James Pierce Jr. is a guy who has a lot of explosion, has a lot of speed, and he probably has the highest potential in the draft, not named Abdul Carter. Even though Mikael Williams is right there, number 2, James Pierce Jr., if he had better tape and more consistent tape, he would be number 2, objectively. But because Mikael Williams has much better proven tape, then that's what takes James Pierce and knocks him down a few pegs, because he has everything there. It's just like Shamar Stewart, there was not enough consistency to really reflect that. So you're getting a really good talent in James Pierce. It's just a matter of, can you actually turn that talent into consistent elite production? And for the Lions, I think they're going to get, a lot out of James Pierce Jr. It's a good fit there for the coaching. But also, the Lions, who killed them in the divisional round of the playoffs? Jaden Daniels. And you look at more and more quarterbacks that are emerging in the NFC as, improvisers and these runners that can make plays with their legs. The AFC is really known for that. Well, the NFC has quarterbacks too that are really emerging in that type of mold. So getting a guy like James Pierce Jr., who has great explosion and speed that can really challenge the mobility of some of these quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, right? Even guys like Bryce Young, and then also Kyler Murray, if you want to go on like a tier lower than that. So James Pierce is a great complement to where, okay, now you got an edge rusher that not only you fill a position of need, a desperate need, right? You got a guy like that Aiden Hutchinson who plays with a lot of polish, but maybe not has like the high-end ceiling like James Pierce Jr., but James Pierce Jr. does have that high-end talent and can really complement well with Aiden Hutchinson if it works out. So I like the fit, I like the need once again, and that's why I have James Pierce Jr. remaining with Detroit. Number 29, I have the Commanders picking Nick Scoriton, the edge out of Texas A&M. Ultimately, I think he might fall into the second, but the reason why I have him going to the Commanders, because I think the Commanders really do need an edge rusher. But instead of going for Donovan Ezeruku, who is a more polished day one ready starter, Nick Scoriton is a guy that he'll just probably be in the rotation, like be a third down rusher on day one. The thing is, he's only 20 years old, so he has plenty of time to grow, which definitely that youth factor is a huge influence in why I had him going first round in this mock draft. But also, he needs to put on some weight. He's like 240. If he went up to like 250 or even 260, if you really want to push it, he could be an all-world pass rusher. He definitely has the bend. His bend is absolutely nuts for someone his size. And you add on the rest of his athleticism and the rest of his tools, right, and the traits that he brings to the table already. You add on some more pounds, and, maybe sit him, maybe not sit him, but, get him to a more limited role in your run like Mike Green with Baltimore in this mock, you could be getting a really good pass rusher that gives you a lot of upside later on. And if you really invest into his development, he's probably going to be a great player for you for a long time. So I like it. It could work well there. And then now we get to the Buffalo Bills, where they draft Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon. He's the best defensive tackle because he is like the most true defensive tackle in the draft. He's got the right size. He has the ideal strength and power. He's a good 3 technique. He has good ability to get after the quarterback. The thing is, Derek Harmon, while he was productive, at the next level, he's not going to be a true like game wrecker. I'm not saying he won't. He can be. I'm not doubting that. But paired up next to Ed Oliver, Derek Harmon can be a guy that can really just, him and Ed Oliver both will just eat up a heck ton of blocks and make the jobs for Greg Russo, Nick, or Joey Bosa so much easier. Like, I think if you put Derek Harmon next to Ed Oliver and then you add Greg Russo and Joey Bosa, that's a top 10 defensive line on paper. That's a top 10 defensive line on paper, in my opinion. And Derek Harmon, he's the best one available. They need a defensive tackle with Larry Ogunjobi being suspended for 6 games. So, bam, he'll go in and, be a contributor right away. And then maybe if he doesn't perform up to expectations, guess what? Larry Ogunjobi, when he comes back from his suspension, will play and fill that spot. And then Derek Harmon can kind of rotate in. And then now you have a solid rotation of 3 really good interior defensive linemen that can all rotate around and play really well, and you keep them fresh throughout the game. So at worst, you're getting a really good depth player in year 1 and Derek Harmon. At best, you draft him, he starts right above Larry Ogunjobi because of the suspension, and he hits right away. And then Larry Ogunjobi is that 3rd defensive tackle that can still give you a lot of juice as a 3rd guy. So there's really no reason the Bills don't draft defensive tackle in the 1st round. But Derek Harmon, if he falls there, would be a slam dunk pick to me. And then 31st overall, right after the Bills, I have the Kansas City Chiefs selecting Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. Drastically different player. Maybe not drastically, but a different player than Derek Harmon, who is a, like I said, true defensive tackle type of player. Walter Nolan, while he is undersized for a defensive tackle, he's like 290, which you would want to hit that 300 threshold if you're a defensive tackle. The thing is, Walter Nolan is a guy that, for a defensive tackle, he's a very good pass rusher. He has a lot of tools. He has a lot of athleticism for someone his size. Like, he is, in a way, like a bigger edge rusher. Like, think about, like, big edge rushers are like 260, like, high 250 range, right? But at the same time, like, he's a step bigger than that because he's in the 290s. So he has the tools and athleticism of like an edge rusher. It's just he's bigger than that. So he's obviously a defensive tackle, which is where he's going to play at the next level. But definitely compared to other defensive tackles in this draft class, those techniques, like I mentioned, and those pluses are a lot more refined than his peers next to him. So you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, who need pass rush help, right? Because they lost so many people in that department, especially at defensive tackle. It fills a hole, and it gives a lot of juice where you have a guy like George Karlaftis, for example, and you pair those two together, guys are both very toolsy. So I think it could be a good fit. I think it fills a position of need, which I've said a lot for this mock, but there's a reason why I say that. And I think Walter Nolan, if he goes 31st to the Chiefs, I think it's going to be a really good fit because you get a guy like Walter Nolan, you pair him with, I'm again, ad nauseum, I'm sorry, the great coaching that you get in Kansas City. I think that could be a really good match together. And then rounding off the 1st round, I have the Eagles selecting Donovan Azuruku out of Boston College. While I don't know about Donovan Azuruku, I don't know where he could go. He's either going to go in the mid-20s to falling out of the 1st round. The thing is, if Donovan Azuruku is available for the Philadelphia Eagles, I think the Eagles trade down. Because Azuruku, he doesn't have a lot of high-end talent. He's one of those guys where his floor is really high and very polished, very productive player at Boston College. So while that would be nice, I think the Eagles would really love a guy with a lot more upside. So maybe you trade down and then you pick like Prince Amamayelen out of Ole Miss, right? Walter Nolan's teammate. So I could see that happening. But right now, because there's no trades, I have them selecting Donovan Azuruku. And if he were to go to the Philadelphia Eagles, he would be a day 1 impact right away. And for a team that lost Milton Williams, so their defensive tackle group is going to be less impactful. Not saying it's not going to be impactful, right? They're still going to be really good with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, but you're going to need more edge rusher help than you did last year. So a guy that's been productive and is polished and can give you day one contributions, that would fit really well. Ultimately, I think they would want to go with someone with higher upside, which if James Pierce Jr. or Nick Scorton is available over Donovan Ezeruku, or if Ezeruku goes first, I think the Eagles would stick and pick one of those guys at 32. But if those guys go in front of Ezeruku and he's the last first round guy available, I think they ultimately trade down and go for a guy that might have higher upside. But that is it. That rounds out the first round of this 2.0 mock draft. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Who do you think I have too high? Who do you have too low? And who do you think ultimately will not fall into the first round? I want to know all your thoughts on this mock. Also, make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe button if you're new around here on the channel and you like the content. Helps the channel out tremendously and continue to grow and spread my football passion to more and more people. And lastly, share the video, whether it's by word of mouth or by social media, getting everybody locked in to the Shumake Take podcast, coming out with great content for you guys every single week. Hope you guys have enjoyed. That'll do it for me. And as always, I will see you all next time.